We are now in the realm of dark matter. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cory.
And this week we will be talking about the latest from Pearl Jam, which is entitled Dark Matter. The reason that we're doing this is because I got to have the very great opportunity to see one of their shows on this tour when I was in Las Vegas. Now, a little more than a week ago. They were there for 2 nights. I went to night one. Yeah, I got to hear some of these new songs live along with some Pearl Jam classics. So I'm really excited to talk about them. And this is a pretty cool album too to discuss, I think. So there's a lot happening.
There definitely is. I was thinking about you seeing them and thinking about how much of the old stuff they might do and if it would fit. And there's a vibe here that harkens back to the 90s Pearl Jam that I really actually didn't expect, especially coming out of the last recording. So it was pretty cool listening to this one.
Yeah, it sounds like Gigatone was definitely a bit of a more modern record from 2020. This one, it's got a modern vibe to it, but they want something familiar. It seems like that was the vibe they were going for.
Yeah, and Gigaton, I'm not going to hate on it. It was just recorded all over the place. They weren't together, This one, they're all together. They're all sitting in, we're going to talk about it, but one of the best spots to record, sitting in Shangri-La and doing their thing together and really high pacing it in the studio again. You can feel it on this album.
Yes, and it is once again done through their own Monkey Wrench Records, which is a subsidiary of Republic Records. And they chose a new producer for this album, Andrew Watt, and he's become a pretty big name over the past decade or so. And he was an easy choice because he is the guitarist of the Earthlings, which is Eddie Vedder's solo band. But his credentials are pretty good. He's done quite a bit of pop music. He's worked with people like Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez. But since then, he's done rock influenced projects for artists like Miley Cyrus and Post Malone. And he seems to be a guy that classic artists go to for their new albums. He's produced the last records from both Ozzy Osbourne and, more recently, the Rolling Stones. So seems to be an in-demand guy, and rock stars that predate Pearl Jam were going to them. So it seemed like a pretty obvious fit. And at the show I went to, Eddie Vedder actually said, we recorded this album pretty quickly because, in his words, the producer, he said, he worked us like fucking slaves. Those were Eddie Vedder's words. So,
oh, yeah.
yes, he was not playing around. But he said he thought it was worth it. That was his main point of it all. And Andrew Watt even appeared at the show and played live with them, which was pretty awesome. That was honestly probably the best performance of the show. That was an epic song to hear live.
That's awesome. I got to figure they play that when they're doing Eddie solo stuff too. I am surprised that he wasn't on stage for Running. Since he's got credit on that one, but
yeah, they did do Running. Running's been at every show on the tour. Several of these songs have. It makes sense. Running was a single. But yes, most of this album, it was recorded in less than a month at Shangri-La Studios last year. And they just were in the room playing it together, and they were ready to go. And they really amped up the promotional activities. They had some fun stuff going on for this. There was there were listening day parties at record stores across the country. There was an option to hear the album in movie theaters. We got a really cool album cover too. It was a painting by Alexander Nezdilov. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, I just think it's a neat image, and they took this imagery to use for visuals for the new songs, which I thought was pretty neat. Actually, I think this band could play the Sphere with that production design, with this aesthetic. I think they could have done it.
That's cool. We're still there, man. You got one up with me here. I still have not seen Pearl Jam live, and it's one of the ones that haunts me. Hopefully I will one day, but
maybe this year. Maybe
Heard.
they do release some of these tickets last minute, it seems, for these shows. So who knows? Maybe in Baltimore we'll get lucky.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Because I'd do it again. I thought it was an awesome concert. And this new album played a big part in it. And when you play new material live, when you're a legacy band at this point, like Pearl Jam is, you run a risk of alienating some people. Fortunately, Pearl Jam has a devoted enough fan base that they're okay with the new material. The man I sat next to at the show said it was close to show number 60 for him.
Wow. 60 for Pearl Jam?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah. Because they change their set list each show. They're one of those bands like Dave and Fish and The Dead. And the woman I sat next to before the show at the Hard Rock Cafe said it was round 13 for her. So a lot of repeat people come to their shows.
That's so awesome. Good for them.
Yes, definitely. And they seem to be rapturing indie acclaim. This has got an 81 score on Metacritic. That's higher than the newest Taylor Swift album, which this was released on the same day as. So April 19th. So obviously this did get overshadowed, but Pearl Jam doesn't need to debut at number 1 at this point. It seems like they made this for the fans, and the fans are responding positively, and so are the critics as a added bonus. I mean, at this rate, they'll probably get a rock album Grammy nod for this based on the response.
Yeah, when I was going down and saw the critical acclaim, I said, all right, they got a shot here. They definitely have a shot. And that was before I listened. I'm not going to do any spoilers, but the critical acclaim, the stuff they were saying got me excited. And I usually don't look at that stuff before I go down the rabbit hole of a critical ear on an album, but I just happened to be reading and everybody was up in arms in a good way on that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of best since the 90s is one you will see over and over again.
Yeah.
In these reviews. And it still charted pretty well despite the competition. It debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200 with 69,000 units sold first week. Not bad at all. It topped all the rock album charts possible. And yeah, this is a band, they have that thing. They'll be touring in Europe too. It's charted pretty well in those countries as well. And they seem to be in a really inspired phase in their career right now. And I love to see it. I really do.
Speaking for me, but like there's always been something about Eddie Vedder that I not only love to see him do well, but I love to see people get pumped. I always felt like the hardcore Pearl Jam fan base was super critical, and like albums like Vitalogy or just whatever, every once in a while you'd get a group that was like, oh man, this is crap. I love Pearl Jam, but this is crap. And it always hurt because there's just always something about Pearl Jam, but more and specifically Eddie Vedder that I love and I love to see do well. So it was cool to see everybody getting pumped about this.
Yeah, and not everybody around me at the show seemed to know all the new songs, but the people who did were loving them. And this fan base is still happy to hear the hits all this time later. So they are able to play these songs amidst their 90s classics. And how well did they fit in? We'll discuss that when we get into this track by track, which I think we're about ready to do, right?
Yeah, I say let's get at it.
All right, but before we get at it, please do subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us. I see we got a couple more subscribers on Spotify, which I was very happy to see, very encouraging. And also follow us on social media. Links are in the description. That's where you'll get updates on all our latest episodes and Pearl Jam concert videos. You want to see those. Have some of those up right now. Very fun. So with that being said, let's get into it.
Pausa rapidinho agora para falar de dica de ouro para os papais e mamães. Depois de experimentar a nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha, tudo ficou ainda melhor para o meu filho. É a única com canais em X que se adaptam aos movimentos, com 2 vezes proteção noturna e cintura elástica que se adapta ao corpinho do bebê, além de ser super fácil de colocar e tirar. Praticidade pura. Então guarda essa dica. Nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha. Bebê, estamos juntos nessa, mais do que nunca. Agora curta seu podcast.
So the album opens with Scared of Fear. I would call this a rollicking opener. It reminds me a bit of Rearview Mirror, actually, in its sound. That was the song that really came to mind for me, which told me we're in for a classic Pearl Jam sound, which is nice. And just a lot of nostalgia is present in the chorus. Like, we used to laugh, we used to sing, we used to believe. And I think it's a great opener. I think it really lets us know what we're in for. And it was the first new track that was done at during the set list of the show I attended. And it followed 4 90s tracks, and it fit in really well. So I think that that's really, I feel like that was very key in making this album. I really do think they were thinking of songs that will fit in a set list. Because you have to. They're still able to play baseball parks in 2024. So they have to think of that. And I think that was really a smart way to go about making this album for these guys.
Yeah, this as an opener, one, you use the word nostalgia. It sang so much like old Pearl Jam. It was such a breath of fresh air. Starting this album off for me listening, it was a giant smile on my face. And we talked about them being an awesome live band to go see, but they really are a live band, and they always have been. Not to get too far ahead, but this album, I feel like there's a lot of live tracks on there. And you get that live sort of feeling here when you get to our first McCready solo, and it rips and it tears open right here in the first jam, and it's beautiful. It really is.
Yeah, Mike McCready is on fire this whole album.
Yeah, I mean, and he always has been. Like, cats back in the day used to sleep on him because there's so much going on for them as a whole band, and I love that. But I've always loved him, and to hear him still ripping it. There is a tiny bit of age on this, but it's age in a good way, like an aged cheese or something, you know,
fine wine.
A fine wine, correct. It really is. And I'm smiling right now thinking about this tune and the way it opened up this album. Such a neat thing from Pearl Jam, especially in the year 2024. It's amazing.
Yes, and they're going to keep it going with another rocker, which is React Respond. And I feel like so far, this is great running music. This is the kind of music that you would run to. We'll get back to that a bit later in the album, of course. I really see this song as kind of a commentary on social media and how there's so many reactions on there to what's going on in the world. And Eddie Vedder is saying, don't react, respond, do something about it. And I really... It's not angry. He doesn't sound like super angry about it. Like, I don't get maybe not angry, but not bitter. He's not bitter, but he is saying, like, you need to do better. And we just see so much online with everybody has something to say about everything, but what are they doing about it? And then when stuff is done about it, there's criticism of that. We're seeing that all the time now with like college protesters and stuff. And this isn't overtly political, but I think there's a political subtext that I find very powerful. And it's a catchy tune, great guitars again. Mike McCready is an MVP for 2024. This is amazing.
Yeah, this composition is mind-blowing. It takes me back again with this nostalgia piece, but just hearing them still doing these sounds that could throw people into a mosh pit, and then also have this Eddie Vedder, I'm so glad you said it, but this undertone of what Eddie does best, and that's really put stuff in our ears that he thinks is worth us thinking about. And in this, you get this undertone, this political undertone, or this just commentary undertone, and I dig it. It rides on top of this kinetic run, and there's this pizzicato string really just plucked string throughout this that is such a neat addition. It's a runner. Like, we're here, second track. I wasn't even trying to make a joke when you said this is good running music, but like, we're off to the races here, and we're in some seriously powerful Pearl Jam. The shit that, ooh, see, I'm getting all excited. The stuff that you go to a show for, or the stuff that you listen to them for, and just rock out. Period. It's insane. It's a lot. It's another one that just sounds so ready for stage, ready for concert, and it's coming out of the studio. McCready is tearing it by the end of this song. I'm gonna say that a million times, but they're on point at track 2 going into track 3.
Yeah, and it was stage ready. Can confirm. As was the next song. And also, I have to apologize for my sniffles here. I am still back from the desert, so didn't have any there, but now I have it again. So it's okay. I gotta flush it all out as I drink my soda from my Pearl Jam Dark Matter World Tour koozie. It's very nice. I think it's very nice. But yeah, so next track. Another live ready song, which is Wreckage, a less heavy tune. This one, it takes this idea of combing through the wreckage, looking at what's left, really drives that point home beautifully. Like, especially the line charcoal on the faces and the burned up photographs. Just this really, it's a simple yet poetic way to illustrate this idea. And I get a very heartland rock vibe from it. This reminds me of like a Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen thing. And I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. I've made that pretty clear already if you've been listening to us for a while. He was literally our second episode ever. So I'm a big fan. Eddie Vedder's a big fan too. And you really hear that influence here. And I think Tom Petty would have been really proud of this song. This is like what he would have been doing if he were still here. Unfortunately, he's not, but Eddie Vedder is, thank goodness. This was released 2 days before the album. I didn't listen to it beforehand, but I was just floored the first time I heard it. I thought, what a beauty. I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about this song right now. I just thought, like, what a beautiful tune and lyric. And I was probably the person in the whole MGM Grand Garden Arena most excited to hear this song. The diehard next to me was happy that I was so happy to hear this song, because I really, definitely one of my favorite songs of the year, easily. It'll be in like a top 10 year-end songs for me. It's such a beautiful track. Just stop what you're doing and listen to this song.
Yeah, please listen to this one. You're already in my notes, but my literal first notes on this was daughter meets Tom Petty. And that's the vibe I got here. Coming off the intro to this, I really thought we were going into a almost daughter heavy place for them, but we really do. We get this heartland rock. I'm gonna say it. I stop myself there. This masterpiece here. It really goes. It's a 5-minute song that leaves nothing, no slow spots, no extra notes. It is well done. And we're coming off of React, Respond, and Scared of Fear. We're coming off these heavy Pearl Jam punkish vibes, these heavy garage vibes. And then they switch it around and show us that they can do something like this. Tom Petty would have loved this. And there's almost a piece of me that says that there's an homage here. If it's conscious or subconscious for Eddie Vedder. It's just, there's not enough good stuff I can say about this. It's such a beautiful piece.
Petty is a huge part of Vedder's musical DNA. I think it's always there, and he knows it, whether he channels it or not. It's always there, most present on a song like this one, and I'm very happy for it. Yeah, but we're going to go back to the punkiness a bit with the title track, which is Dark Matter, also the lead single. I did listen to this before the album. I thought, there's a new song I have to do it. And I really enjoyed it immediately. I thought this is so contemporary sounding, but yet it sounds familiar. I think this is the most evident example of the sheen Andrew Watt has brought to this album,
Heard.
because you can hear that he's worked with your Miley Cyruses and Post Malones with this modern vibe. Like, I hear what he did on Plastic Hearts, which is an album that I love. Miley Cyrus's best, in my opinion. But it still sounds like a Pearl Jam song, and a kick-ass Pearl Jam song at that one. And it's modern, it's familiar, it's all of that. And this song was strong enough to follow Daughter on their set list. If that doesn't tell you that this song is great, I don't know what else does. Because it followed followed Daughter with an outro of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. This song.
Yeah. It's crazy to hear that this followed Daughter, especially because of the masterwork of vocal range in both. This for me is the peak of Eddie on this album vocally, and it's just so strong. It's such a strong backing composition that it's got this jigga going on, and while it stays melodic enough through Eddie's vocals to just keep carrying it. It's a powerful one. It's a slap back into the reality of this album musically after Wreckage, and I dig it, man. Eddie is getting it. Eddie is getting at it on this one.
That he is. But he's gonna show us his softer side of it on the next track, which is Won't Tell. It's a love song where our narrator is begging for a woman. This really just sounds like a 2000s rock band ballad. The first song that came to mind for me was actually Hoobastank's The Reason. I don't know why.
Heard that.
Just a little bit. I like this song. But it just doesn't stand out in the way the punchier songs here do. Especially after these first 4 tracks, which all really amped us up or even took us down in the case of Wreckage. This doesn't get to that level. One of the only ones from this album I didn't hear, and I can't say I missed it a whole ton. Not that it's a bad song, it's just there's a lot better. There was better before, and there's better coming up.
Yeah, it's produced so well that it sounds great, and it's not a bad song at any rate, but it doesn't make me do anything, for lack of better words, like the previous 4 songs have. It's not that it's like a stagnant pool of a song, because it moves around and it does its thing, but it doesn't shine, like you said. It sort of, I won't use palate cleanser or anything like that. It's there for this album. It doesn't necessarily do much. It is, if I have to say least favorite, it's my least favorite, but there isn't much to not like so far, and for me, pretty much on this album. So yeah, I'm with you there. I didn't, it's almost like you don't want to say it because it's coming in so beautifully, but you gotta say it here. It's like, all right, track 5 is okay.
Yeah, it's just okay. Yeah. We've now reached our midpoint of the album, track 6, smack dab in the middle of our 11 songs here. And this is Upper Hand. It's the longest song here. I feel like at this point, it kind of has a similar function to what Black served on 10, coming at this point in the album. And it's got a psychedelic intro, and it's another look back song. I kind of interpret this as Eddie Vedder just being out on the road and trying to make everyone smile and be the entertainer. Sorry if it wasn't the best timing, but I've never had the upper hand. I mean, it's a really beautiful song. I think that it speaks to something real inside of him. I don't know exactly what the inspiration was. I didn't see an interview with him saying that. If there is, please let me know. But Yeah, this has really quickly been singled out as a highlight of the album, and it's not hard to see why. And the band has picked up on that, it seems. They played this right after Even Flow of all songs.
I'm
So,
sorry, I'm moving around while you're saying it, but that's where I was going with this. That's what I have in my notes. It really reminds me of an even flow. It's so wild that I can see the musical transition here.
yeah, they did Even Flow right in between two new songs. So, pretty wild if you think about it, but I think that says something about really what they're going for here. And it's a conscious look back, but it still sounds fresh. And this is another one. It's a beautiful song, I think. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, and especially at almost 6 minutes, we go back into this live version song recording that they're doing on this album, or it seems like they're going for on this album, and this is another perfect example of it. And there's a sadness inside of this composition that is present in Eddie's vocals and present in the musical composition itself, and it works out so well. It's another full 6 minutes, and it really is. It's on the lines of Even Flow for me, and I dig it. It's so crazy that it came out of Even Flow. I bet you it was almost seamless. But you can see how these songs stick together, and for me, that's another strong point of them really getting back to this older Pearl Jam sound. They're killing it. They're killing it. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at Shangri-La while this was going on, because from the recordings, there just feels, maybe just to me, but there feels like so much raw old Pearl Jam energy going on. It's just great to see from these guys. Again, I keep saying this, but in the year 2024, it's so wild that Pearl Jam is pumping out an old school album right now, and I'm loving every minute of it. We're here at number 6, and it's still going strong. I have to say, not bashing on Won't Tell, but I really think Upper Hand would flow right out of Dark Matter perfectly. I don't think they're too similar. I think they would have complemented each other a little bit better next to each other.
I can see what you're saying. Won't Tell actually feels like it fits more in like that latter suite of songs here.
Agreed.
But we're not quite at that point yet, but we will be soon, because we're at track 7, which is Waiting for Stevie. So on Pearl Jam appeared on the Howard Stern show, actually, and they revealed that this song was about actually waiting for Stevie Wonder to play a harmonica solo on Eddie Vedder's solo album Earthling. And the first Stevie I thought of was Stevie Wonder. I thought, that's a Stevie you're waiting for. It's probably Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
But at the show, Eddie did a vamp intro by saying, like, this song's about Stevie Wonder. No, it's about Stevie Nicks. No, it's about, he just kind of kept going on and on. And the last one he said was Stevie Ray Vaughan, but they said, really, this is a song about the power of music. I thought, okay, that's nice. And
There you go.
I obviously knew what song he was about to do. And I'm not gonna lie, this is probably a hot tea take, because this song seems to have been really well received so far. Didn't love this song the first couple of listens through. I felt like it just dragged on, and it took me out of the album a bit, actually. It really did. And it definitely wasn't the highlight of the show for me until the outro, when Mike McCready just rips it. It was, oh man, these guitars. This is the guitar high point of this album. And now I appreciate the song a lot more for the outro. I think they just wrote a song to showcase some kick-ass guitars. That was really, that was the idea. And you know what? It works. I ain't mad at them. It's definitely not my favorite song here, but I'm not mad at them.
Yeah, it's wild to say, listening back to it now. I mean, like if you're a first time listener, you might not realize that we do like, or at least I do like 10 to 15 listens. This one has been on nonstop play since my first listen. But I'm with you. The first time through this album, this one sort of sat a little bit to me. It seemed to just drag along. And now listening back to it, I dig this song, but listening back and thinking those thoughts, it's almost like, what the hell were you thinking? This song kills. It rocks. There's so much guitar here. Matt Cameron is just nonstop filling everything he can fill. It's a good one. It is. The power of music is a perfect way to talk about this song, because really Eddie sort of takes a step back, in my opinion, on this one and lets everybody else just rock it. And it works. But I'm with you. It was a grower. I don't know how else to explain it. And I feel a little embarrassed looking back, but it was a grower for me.
Yeah, but they were killing it at the show. Every band member, the whole band is on fire this year. But especially Mike McCready. Oh my goodness. Like, sir, he was killing me the whole time. I was like, what?
That's so great.
But now we're going to go to the aforementioned Running, which was the second single, the shortest song on the album, following two of the longest songs. And definitely the most punk track here in spirit. It's too polished to really be punk, but in its attitude, it is. In its attitude. And I mean, I enjoyed this song. It's a fun little rocker, and I did like their promotional activity for this song. They created a Pearl Jam running club on their social media and asked that the fans run in a dark matter inspired shape and to share their route in that shape from their phone and hashtag Pearl Jam Running Club. I thought that's doing social media right, really interacting with your fans. I didn't do it because I would have like fallen midway through the route, but I really thought that's such a creative, fun thing to do. I appreciated that. And yeah, it's a cool little tune. It's a cool rocker. It does its thing. It definitely doesn't have the impact of the earlier rockers we talked about, mostly due to length, but I feel like that's the point. And it's been done at every show on the tour, of course. And Eddie Vedder did run a bit during it, which was, he's in better shape than I am. He looks damn good for being 60 years old. Let me tell you. I'm like, what? I hope I look that good at 60. I really do. And but honestly, realistically, it kind of was just the intro to Even Flow, because that came right after it.
Heard that. Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with the super punky Pearl Jam songs, especially like the hardcore ones. And maybe it's the hot tea take. I'll say at 2 minutes and 19 seconds, this was the perfect length for me as far as these heavy punk songs go in the Pearl Jam history here. On this album, it fit right in, but I'm glad that it was just a little precursor here to the final three songs. It does its job in droves, don't get me wrong, but I'm glad it was a little bit shorter than the previous two tracks.
Yeah, it was good to have that, because at that point you do risk losing our attention with too many long songs in a row. And we are going to go into a bit more of a contemplative place with this final trilogy of tracks, which begins with Something Special, which the band and Andrew Watt co-wrote with Josh Klinghoffer, a man I've always felt really sorry for, because he had the really unenviable task of replacing John Frusciante in the Red Hot Chili Peppers for 10 years. So, but now he's in Eddie Vedder's solo band, which is probably better for everybody, because I just don't see why would it seems like his era of that band, of the Chili Peppers, divides that fan base a lot, but just tough shoes to fill. You're fighting an uphill battle doing that. So I'm glad that he's still doing his thing where it's probably more appreciated. Frank, no disrespect at all to the man, but you don't want to be in John Frusciante's shoes. You just don't. You don't want to be in Mike McCready's shoes either. But
That's real.
you just don't. But yeah, it's a mid-tempo rocker about how we all have something special. We're all unique. Nice message. This is not a high point. This is definitely, it doesn't take me out of the album. Moves along just fine. But if I have to pick a least favorite song here, it's this one. Just the other songs here hit harder.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't hit as hard as the other songs. We get into this last kiss type of mentality here where it almost sounds like an acoustic, just I won't say love song per se, but it's outside of our normal box. But I have to say it doesn't take me out because where I have that love hate with the punk Pearl Jam sometimes, I have this special, I look for this part of Pearl Jam where he gets like, I'm a huge fan of Elderly Woman, Last Kiss, that kind of for lack
like the
of
Better
words,
Man kind of songs.
like like this avant-garde Pearl Jam, if that makes any sense. And this one fits into that for me. It's definitely driven by that almost that like offbeat, almost like country snare drum, and I dig that in this weird way. So for me, Something Special, it stays up there in the top third of this album for me.
Okay. Yeah, but they do kind of keep a similar sound going, I think, somewhat with the next track, which is Got to Give. I feel like this song really tackles a lot of the ideas that we heard on Wreckage earlier in the album. It's a bit heavier than that one. Once again, very 2000s sounding more than 90s here. It's a standard breakup tune. I feel like it moves along pretty nicely.
Sabia que você inspira outras pessoas? Às vezes é difícil reconhecer o seu valor, mas eu tô aqui para dizer, você vale muito. L'Oréal Paris quer lembrar todas as mulheres disso, inclusive no cinema. Por isso, criou o Lights on Women's Worth Awards no Festival de Cannes, um prêmio que celebra as diferentes narrativas das mulheres no cinema e inspira outras, porque representatividade e reconhecimento são importantes. L'Oréal Paris, porque você vale muito.
So I'm not the most objective reviewer here because I love Wreckage. So I am happy to hear a song that takes on some of those similar ideas because I felt it was done so well. But realistically, this is a bit redundant and it was heard better in the album. Like, I'll take it. It's not bad at all. But we did hear a much superior song in this vein earlier. So it's just not a highlight. It's a serviceable tune. I'm not obsessed with it, but it's definitely not a skip for me at all.
Yeah, definitely not a skip. And I really tried to come into this telling myself that I wouldn't compare it to old Pearl Jam, but I feel like it's almost inevitable that we go down here. I have a really tough time not hearing Better Man almost when I hear this. And that's not a bad thing. And I understand listening to them and the way they usually put together an album. We're going to get to a point where we get this laid back feeling. I dig that that's the end third of this album. I think it's placed correctly. It's definitely way laid back compared to what we had earlier in the album, but I don't think it falters there. I think it really does its job, and it's crazy being the penultimate track how much we've changed gears since the first song to here.
Yeah, I feel like they're switch up between these softer songs and the heavy one. It kind of reminds me a lot of Zeppelin and their switches between that.
Yeah.
But we are going to close our album out now. I'm sad this is over. I've been enjoying this so much. But it's the softest song yet we're closing with, which is Setting Sun, one of the most appropriately titled album closing tracks ever on this show. And this one, it has like a slight tribal feel in the music, which I like. It's a sad song. I mean, the refrain is, "Am I the only one hanging on?" And my takeaway from this is Eddie Vedder has a lot of relationship anxiety, which is like kind of weird because he was talking about how him and his wife were fundraisers for a rare skin disease. I don't remember how to pronounce it, and I'm not going to try to. But I mean, that seems pretty real to me. That's a heavy commitment to make together. And he told the story of playing a solo show in Vegas at the Palms, and he raised a ton of money just by playing the song Black because it was requested. He was hesitant at first because it's a band song, but he said, "Oh, I have to do it to raise the money." So that was his cool Vegas story. And I think this song is a good album closer. I really feel like it takes us out very nicely with the whole Setting Sun motif.
I'm with it. I'm with everything he said there. I really like it as a closer for this album. Musically, it does exactly what I want it to do. It almost relaxes me. Really, the last third of this almost relaxes me out of this wild run that we came into, no pun. But there is a bit of me that this relationship anxiety you're talking about, I really get throughout this album, that it's almost, maybe it's me, maybe I'm reading in a little bit too much, but I feel like this might be Eddie's introspective as a 60-year-old man with music. And I can only hope that this Setting Sun isn't the final sunset that we'll see from this band. But it almost sounds to me a bit like he is doing an introspective take here and being like, am I the only one still hanging on? I hope that this isn't the end of what we'll hear from these beautiful band of merry men. But as a closer, it's poetic, it's really well done, and it's beautiful.
I mean, you've changed my mind on the song. That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, my one friend Justin, who appeared on this show a long time ago, he's always loves to note how it's kind of funny that Pearl Jam sang Alive and Eddie Vedder is the only Big Four grunge lead singer still alive. Like, he's outlived a lot of his peers, though. He's seen quite a bit of loss in his years as a musician, and that's got to weigh heavily on you. I mean, we talked about Chris Cornell last week on the show, so he has seen a lot, and that is something to think about, really. But I don't think it's the last that we've seen of Pearl Jam. They have a lot left to give. Trust me. Just based on the show, they have a lot left to give. And while I like this song, I do have a set list criticism. So this has been the show closer for the whole tour so far.
Really?
Yes.
Oh man.
And wow. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little anticlimactic because the two songs preceding this were Alive and Yellow Ledbetter. You can't follow that. I don't think, in a way, it works, but at the same time, I felt like it just was a bit of a downbeat note to end the show on. I didn't really work for me, that at all. Like, I wish this was like maybe like the first or second song in the encore. I feel like that would have worked a bit better than it being the actual. I get that it's the album closer, but it end of the show. It
was the encore closer.
Yes, this was not the main set closer.
Wow.
The main set closer was Porch, which was awesome.
That's awesome.
But this was the absolute end of the show. Last song we heard after Yellow Ledbetter. That was rough.
That is tough, but maybe I'm on to something. Oh man, I hate to be on to something, but That is a weird one to end your encore with. I don't even feel like there's a place for a full band flourish at the end of it.
There isn't.
Unless it's like a forced one note, you know.
I mean, it was a cool visual backdrop. I'll give it that, but
hey, man, though, setting sun, maybe it is. Now I'm going to start picking it apart. Maybe it is an introspective.
He's not retiring.
Conspiracy theories.
The Rolling Stones are on tour this year, and Mick Jagger is 80. Eddie Vedder is not retiring.
There you go. There you go.
I'm sorry. Mick Jagger can still tour. Eddie Vedder has some time left.
I'm with you.
He's not done. No, he's not done. And I'm glad they're not done, because clearly I think we've seen with this album, they have a lot of juice left in the engine. So
yeah.
Wow. What a fun treat for 2024. Pearl Jam's Dark Matter. We've come to the end. I'm sad we've come to the end. You're a longer time fan than I am. We'll get more into my music nostalgia next week. But I am curious to know, as a longtime fan who was around when they really broke out, what is your grade for the album?
Man, Pearl Jam Dark Matter. This is, I feel like I always fall into this trope when I get into grading stuff that I grew up with, or albums that are coming out from artists that I've loved for a long time, to take the nostalgia out of it. But for this one, not only was it impossible, but it was such a huge point of this album that they were still Pearl Jam. They are still putting out music that is true to their style, true to their artistic offerings that they've put up throughout their career. And it really sang all the way through. I mean, front to back, we couldn't even sit here and not compare to older Pearl Jam. And it's not because we were looking for a way to do it. It just lent itself because the band is still on point. With really the only misstep for me is Won't Tell. But from front to back, this reads like a classic Pearl Jam album musically. I really feel like this is a giant warm hug from an old friend, and it is made itself into my playlist and will not go anywhere. This is a really awesome offering. I implore anyone, first time Pearl Jam to longtime lover of the band, stop what you're doing, sit down and enjoy this album. And for that, I'm going to give it a B+.
B+. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I thought you were going to go A-, maybe.
It almost hit the A. The only reason why I didn't give an A on this one is because even though there are powerful songs throughout, and I feel like there definitely are single worthy songs that were the singles, but for me, there isn't really a standout hit in here, like they've always put or ended up having on their albums. It's a bevy of awesome Pearl Jam music, but I don't feel like there's a timeless classic on here per se. I didn't want to harp on that, but that's really the reason why it didn't achieve an A in my scoring system.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there is a timeless classic on the album. But I am also going to go with a B+. And you do expect the timeless classic from a band with as long of a history as this one. And I mean, especially when you hear these songs next to others, like, were any of these songs the highlight of their concert for me? No, the best part of the show was Alive. Like, right. That was going to happen. You don't do that, but I really do feel like they came forth, gave the fans something new because they wanted to do it. They sounded really inspired, and I really enjoyed the album. And it's crazy that in this year of 2024, we've done quite a few new releases this year, and a couple of them have been underwhelming for us.
Agreed.
I mean, for me, especially the last new release we did, I found underwhelming. And here comes Pearl Jam with an inspired sounding album that I really enjoyed. So this is a very solid B plus for me.
Yeah.
What is your number one song?
Wreckage.
Same here, Wreckage.
Yeah, hands down. Is that the one you think that is a timeless classic? Because it might be, but it's not for me yet.
That's fair. That's fair. And there are other songs in the vein. Like maybe it's hard to say like, oh, this is up there with Better Man or Elderly Woman, or I understand that. But for me in 2024, I'm saying that this song really hit me and moved me. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful song. Yeah. And it's something that I needed this year. So I think that for today, it's one of the best songs I've heard this year. And that's why I say it's a classic. It's going to be a classic for me. That's just how it's going to be.
I don't do it often, but I'm going to buy this album. And I just, it's one that I just want to have in a collection form. You know?
Yeah, I do. I didn't make it down the record store day, or I would have bought the vinyl. I'm definitely going to get one, though. I was at Barnes & Noble yesterday, and they did have this CD, and I almost bought it, except it was $30. And then I said, nope, not today, because my total order was $40. I did not need to buy. I'll spend $30 on the vinyl, not the CD. They didn't have any Pearl Jam vinyl there. Like, what were they doing?
Yeah,
that was lame. Just my opinion, because I'm on a kick right now, but not the only kick I'm on, because next week we'll be going into more of my musical nostalgia, because the reason that I traveled to Las Vegas was to see the one and only Adele in concert. And that's somebody I've wanted to see for a long time. She broke out when I was 14, when she came out with 21. One of the biggest albums of my lifetime, highest selling album of this century. So I was very lucky to be selected for the sale for her show, and I got to go, and still reeling from it. It was totally worth every penny and second of time. I cannot wait to discuss it. The album we will be doing is 21. That was a big part of her set list, and I'm excited to just talk about that song, because just going to that show brought back so many memories for me of being in high school and college, and these songs just being everywhere, all her tunes. And I'm super excited to talk about her beautiful, beautiful concert. And the 21 album, which was it was monumental for me, especially when I don't always think of how much it was, but it was a game changer. And I'm also ready to defend it a bit because of a certain inclusion on the list recently, but we'll be getting into that next week. So
yeah, man, can't wait.
Neither can I. One of my favorites, 21. So until then, just stay tuned. Keep on rolling in the deep until next week. That's all I can tell you.
Peace.